Free will was something I never thought to doubt or even question. I accepted it as a universal truth and never knew there was something fighting against it. Determinism. I stumbled across a couple of YouTube videos and started to see some truth in this new thing in my life called determinism that I never thought once about. The reason you are here, and I am here in this exact place listening to me speak, is a result of past circumstances that you had no control over. I see it as an undoubtable truth that would be tough to ever debunk. This was also one of the big takeaways I got from reading Sam Harris's Free Will book. Why do two brothers, for example, end up living in the same environment, with the same guidance, both smart and risk-taking, but end up with completely different lives? I'm not talking about completely different lives, such as different preferences of women or anything like that, but I mean the juxtaposition of rich and poor, one who has been sober all their lives and the other who is more prone to addiction, therefore is a struggling drug addict. One who suffers no life-threatening medical problems and the other one, which was born with asthma, HIV, and autism. Sam Harris argues that none of the things I listed above can be counted as an act of free will, but instead disproves it. Whether you live a good life or bad, it all comes down to luck, and where is the freedom in that? You not being able to become the 6'3" light skin with curly hair, but instead a fat, autistic, ugly man with a furry fetish, wasn't something that was ultimately yours to decide. You may ask how is it that people with predispositions that negatively affect their lives are able to turn into something positive while others can't. Like look at Helen Keller. Deaf, blind, dumb, a woman, but was able to turn it into something positive. A determinist response is that it wasn't truly Helen Keller but the teacher which played the external force that helped her become the great influential woman she was. Or to an even broader view, why does she have to be born with all these predispositions in the first place? And why does it feel like God is playing favorites? You can say that God had a purpose for Helen Keller, and as we saw she did. She became influential and marked her name in history. My question here is, what about the other deaf kids, the other blind, autistic kids that you never heard about and that live their life in agony? Do they not have a purpose? This then leads to the biggest question for this battle of free will versus determinism. Are people then able to be held accountable for their actions? Can you blame your rapist? Can you blame your abuser? Can you blame the person who caused you so much trauma? After all, they didn't have a choice and were brought into the world with the malfunctions in their brain, having them think that it was okay. I know these questions are extremely emotionally difficult to answer. Ultimately, if the concept of free will is wrong, then the idea of God is wrong, and perhaps he doesn't even exist. How could such an omnibenevolent God hold people accountable and send them to the fiery pits of hell when the evidence points to determinism winning? Back to the problematic question of accountability, I do in fact think that people should be held accountable, and we are able to hold them responsible for the acts they commit. Why? Well, just because someone has the neurons in their brain that may lead to such cynical acts, it doesn't necessarily mean that one should accept and cave into the psychological voice in their heads telling them to do as it's being told. One of the reasons Sam Harris is trying to spread a word of determinism is not so that he can drag as much of us to hell if there is one, but so that we can carefully listen to what our mind is telling us. If it's something bad, then seek help, but if it's something good, then congrats. Sam Harris claims you're lucky. A lot of people make the mistake of neglecting their deep secret desires because they're scared of the societal feedback they'll receive if voiced out. It's a fact that what is contained and repressed will come back even stronger for vengeance. Again, not to say that I'm pushing you to act on thoughts of malevolence, but to at least acknowledge them and try to trace it back to its root. The problem people set with determinism is the sense of fatalism, the belief that all things are predetermined and therefore everything is inevitable. Why try in life? Everything has already been decided for me, so I will carry out life as a loser, quit my job, drop out of school, and adopt this nihilistic approach to life, seek cheap pleasures, and avoid all accountabilities. This is a dangerous route to go down, and I definitely do not recommend going even near it. I'd rather get up and do something with the hand I was dealt, and that to me seems like an act of free will. I was actually ecstatic when I came up with this at night, but the more I thought about it, the more I started to question, why do I personally want to do something with my life? I mean, we see it all the time where people are content with living in the dump when they have every right to be able to clean it, psychologically and physically. And I don't mean a homeless person, I mean you, not directly you, or maybe directly you, I don't know, but I mostly mean people with a roof over their heads, with working hands and legs, and still with a working sense of right and wrong. What goes on psychologically in their heads where they don't even mind the dump they're in? And again, why do I have the privilege to want to do something? It's tough to see freedom in that, but I'm not complaining on this part, and that's mostly because I had been picked to do something with my life. Can you blame a person who is unknowingly ignorant? I truly don't want determinism to be completely true because I so desperately hope for the existence of God. Denying all this information though because of my feelings for an omnipresent father that doesn't feel like he's there is not reasonable. I see the homeless children and ask, where's the freedom in that? Where is their freedom when they don't have the resources to think these daring thoughts of maybe there is something more to life than homelessness? When they are neglected of love because of an irresponsible parent who wished they never had a kid to begin with, it's hard to see the freedom in that. When you're born in India and are thrown into a caste system where your place in society and occupation you will hold for the rest of your life is already chosen, I say, where is the freedom in that? Funny enough, I can picture the believer in God and free will telling me that free will is efficient when you realize you can do something with your life regardless of your beginning place. It's about how you finish rather than how you start, after all, goes the old axiom. There was a study done on how when abused kids have a chance to leave their abusing parents, they still end up running back to them because it's all they know. Girls run back to their tyrannical, malevolent-filled boyfriends because they simply don't know any better. And where I'm going with this is, how are these examples different from a person running back to the ugly, poverty-stricken environments that may lead someone to the ignorance of not knowing there is better out there? How is this different from a person returning to drugs and alcohol after they reach a certain level of sobriety and success and justify it by having just a few drinks for celebration, which would sadly send them down the spiraling staircase, which is addiction? Looking at all these predispositions placed in people that they had no control over, it's hard to accept it and look at free will as still a viable option. Surely, if there is a God, he has a lot of explaining to do, and I just hope my life is filled with the predisposition to find the answer to these tough philosophical questions before my life is done. And if I do find the answers or I don't, again I ask, where is the freedom in that?